Jake Paul has never been shy about using the internet as a stage. But what he pushed out across social media this week signals more than the usual hype cycle. Less than 2 months before his scheduled showdown with Gervonta "Tank" Davis in Florida in November 2025, the YouTuber-turned-boxer has begun posting glimpses of a camp that looks deliberately different, designed to provoke as much as prepare. In a short clip and a few terse lines on his X account, he framed the tone himself: "I have the world on my shoulders trying to bring me down. But obstacles won't stop me. Doubts won't stop me. And most of all, haters won't stop me. 55 days, #JakeTank." The caption is classic Paul, defiant, combative, calibrated to turn skepticism into engagement. But the visuals that accompany it hint at a fighter leaning into the one thing that has always made his events magnetic: the uncharted intersection where combat sports and spectacle meet. Observers who have tracked his camps over the past 4 years noticed immediately that some of the footage diverges from predictable boxing content. There is traditional work, shadowboxing, pad rounds, bag drills, footwork ladders, but there are also sequences that look pulled from strongman training and performance science. A yoke walk with a weighted frame across the shoulders, sandbag carries up a soft incline, underwater breath hold shadowboxing supervised by a coach with a stopwatch. The effect is intentional. To those who call him a novice, these shots suggest a relentless pursuit of an edge. To those who call him a marketer first and a fighter second, they operate as proof that he understands momentum as a critical part of building a gate and an audience. For Paul, the training itself may matter most in one specific way. It offers a story he can use to reframe the central tension of this matchup. He will walk into the ring as the bigger man by a wide margin, a 6'1" cruiserweight who has fought near 200 pounds, carrying height, reach, and mass. Davis, by contrast, is a 5'5" lightweight thunderbolt whose entire career has been defined by timing and destructive precision, not size. The weight gap is why commissions in several states have drawn firm lines, and why Florida has publicly said this contest will be regulated under an exhibition framework rather than as a professional bout. Those distinctions change gloves, rounds, and rules. They also place the burden squarely on Paul to convince audiences that exhibition does not automatically mean light. He is working that angle hard in every clip. What looks unique in his training feed is best described as specificity mixed with spectacle. The videos are carefully edited, but certain patterns stand out. He's spending extended time on neck and trapezius work, harness pulls, isometric holds, partner-resisted movements, to build punch resistance. He's dragging heavy sleds over artificial turf, pairing those pushes with short, explosive multi-punch bursts in 15-second intervals that mimic the sprint and reset feel of short exhibition rounds. He's doing pool work of the kind popularized by performance coaches in MMA and football. Submerged shadowboxing between breath holds to sharpen composure under stress and develop movement economy when oxygen gets scarce. And he's hitting the bag in sets that alternate long-range jabs with up jabs and quick entries. A nod to the kind of feints he'll need if he wants to keep Davis from stepping through his reach to detonate that southpaw left hand. The way he presents this matters as much as the work itself. Paul is fluent in social language, and he understands that every camp narrative has to ladder up into a campaign built to carry a date. The #JakeTank tag is not accidental. It brands him as a fortress, a rolling threat that cannot be pushed offline. It riffs on his opponent's nickname and redirects attention back to weight and pressure, the two things fans keep circling when they imagine that first round. It also complements the countdown content that is now the backbone of every large fight's marketing spine. Daily milestone posts, micro-documentary segments in the gym, team interviews, and lo-fi moments that humanize a persona that can feel larger than life. In that zone, Paul is a master. He did not create the influencer-athlete category, but he has defined it. That ability to control narrative is the reason this fight exists. Traditionalists spend energy asking why a lightweight phenom with generational power would risk stepping into a ring with a much bigger man, even under exhibition rules that restrict damage and prioritize safety. Practical analysts answer with 2 words: scale and opportunity. Jake Paul brings a global and non-traditional audience in numbers that few active champions can touch, with or without a belt. Davis brings the kind of pure, riveting talent that turns skeptics into believers in one punch. It's a pairing that makes no sense from a purist standpoint and perfect sense as a broadcast property. The state of Florida's decision to sanction the bout as an exhibition was predictable given the weight disparity. That ruling didn't put a dent in demand. If anything, it gave both sides a way to build a broader audience by telling viewers exactly what they are buying. a carefully regulated event that exists at the intersection of sport and show, not a title defense that demands undercard credentials. In that space, Paul has come to understand that audiences don't want to be misled. They want to be taken seriously. The video of him strapping into a yoke and walking a turf lane with a weighted frame on his shoulders is staged, yes. It is also an honest expression of how a larger fighter intends to use mass as a strategic weapon. We have seen heavyweights spend time under a similar load for long spine strength. We have seen NFL linemen carry sandbags and flip tires for core stability and mental toughness. This training won't teach him how to read a southpaw feint or neutralize a counterhook, but it will give him something to lean on when the first minute of the first round goes by and he realizes that he cannot afford to chase for 2 minutes and hope to find Davis's shoulders at the bell. The deeper question that fans, analysts, and commissions ask is whether those kinds of training details translate when a fighter meets an elite in-ring mind like Davis. It is not enough to be strong. It is not enough to be angry. It is not enough to be famous. It is not even enough to be brave. Boxing punishes impatience and pride with ruthless efficiency. If this contest had been sanctioned as a professional fight, a sizable slice of the commentary would be explicitly about risk. As an exhibition, that commentary is translated into conversation about safety, optics, and calibration. The Florida Athletic Commission's executive director has already said publicly that a fight with this weight gap could not be approved as a pro bout in his state. That is why the event carries the exhibition label. It is why the talk now shifts to what gloves the commission will require, likely larger, how long the rounds will be, potentially shorter, and how quickly a referee will be empowered to halt exchange when one man fails to answer effectively. These details do not make the event less interesting. They define how audiences will interpret what they see. The contrast in striking profiles is central to that interpretation. Davis made his name at 130 and 135 as a precise, explosive counterpuncher who walks opponents onto punches they didn't see coming. He moves with small, unteachable steps, shifts into position with minimal tells, and throws compact shots that arrive on a line very few fighters can find. His timing is the reason power scales up the way it does. Paul's recent wins came against aging former champions from other sports or deeply flawed opponents whose instincts could be gamed by simple feints. None of that applies here. The people who handle Davis for a living know what happens when an opponent with slow hands extends a jab without intent or leans over his front foot to close distance. They have trained him for years to make those mistakes look like invitations. If Paul is going to give this audience anything beyond the collision of massive platforms, he cannot be the man who reaches for his right cross without setting it. He cannot square up under fire. He cannot stand still on exits. And he will have to accept that the most important work he does will never make a highlight reel. Paul supporters argue that his creative training plan, his size, and his stubbornness make him uniquely capable of complicating a master equation. They point to his chin and his ability to take shots and reset. They argue that he will be allowed to do the one thing that makes all of that relevant: lean, clinch, and annoy. Critics argue that no amount of odd object carry